Hello and welcome back to Something Z, and welcome to What If Naruto at the One Tales Part 5. Last time on the What If, 2.5 part of the Chunin exams happened, with the fights mostly remaining the same. Besides the fight between Lee and Gaara, with Lee actually winning his fight, and afterward he wasn't that injured. And after some training, Naruto met Jiraiya, who gets rid of the seal Orochimaru placed on him. And afterward, Naruto learned how to control more of the Shukaku's power, so now he can cover his arm in sand without losing too much control. He also learned a summoning jutsu by getting pushed off a cliff. Okay, so now that's out of the way, let's jump into the video in 3, 2, 1. So now we skip past the rest of the month's training, and during that time, Naruto practiced controlling more of the One Tails' power. So now he can cover his arm with more sand without losing that much control. He also practiced the summoning jutsu more. And of course, he practiced manipulating his sand to create better weapons and shields. So now it's the day for the final part of the exam. And when the exams began, Naruto knows that Sasuke wasn't there yet. But before he could think too much of it, the main examiner told the public the names of the first match, which was Naruto and Neji. And when their names were called, the rest of the examinees left the arena, while Naruto and Neji went to the other side of the arena. And when everything was ready, the match began. And the second it started, Naruto ran at Neji as fast as he could, and when they collided, Neji tried to hit Naruto in the shoulder with a gentle fist, but right before he was able to hit him, Naruto made a sand shield, which Neji was unable to pierce. Then Naruto tried to punch Neji in the gut, but when Naruto went in for the punch, Neji was able to see it and react in time, and he blocked the attack. And seeing this, Naruto jumped back, and when he was far enough, he made 3 shadow clones, without any sand. Then the 4 go to attack at the same time, but right before they were able to get to him, Neji used 8 triograms Palm Revolving Heaven, which destroyed all the clones Naruto just made, and since Naruto didn't react in time, he got hit as well. And while Naruto was getting back up, Neji ran to him and he began to barrage him with attacks, but Naruto was able to put up his sand defenses in time. And while Neji was attacking, Naruto started to create a dome around himself, and after around 30 seconds, Naruto's dome was fully formed. And seeing this, Neji began to attack even more. But while Neji was distracted, Naruto began to slowly move his sand behind Neji, and he created a third eye, which allowed Naruto to see the outside. And after it was formed, Naruto moved the sand around Neji. And when Neji noticed what was going on, it was too late, and his feet were stuck to the ground. And seeing that he noticed, Naruto decided to stop going slowly, so he moved all the sand he used for the dome at Neji, and he surrounded him to the point where he wasn't able to move. And seeing this, the examinee started to count down from 10, and when he got to 0, Neji was still stuck, making Naruto the winner of the match. And afterward, Naruto moved all the sand back into his container. And when the 2 got out of the arena, the next match was Shikamaru and Temari, with the results being the same as in the canon. So Temari was labeled the winner of the match after Shikamaru gave up. And when they were done, Rock Lee stood in the arena for a couple of minutes, waiting for Sasuke, and after a while, the examinee started to count down for a forfeit. But when he got to 2, Sasuke and Kakashi appeared in the middle of the arena. And after Kakashi left the arena, and when everything was ready, the match began. And when it did, the 2 began to fight using hand-to-hand combat, with them both not going all out, and Sasuke was able to keep up, since when they fought before the exams even started, Sasuke was able to see Lee's movements with the Sharingan, and he was able to copy them. And after some time, they decided to get serious, so Sasuke activated his Sharingan and Lee dropped his weights. And when they were ready, the 2 began to fight again, with Lee having a bit of the upper hand since he was faster and stronger than Sasuke. But after a bit of time, Sasuke was able to kick Lee in the gut, which flung him a few feet away, and when he got up, the 2 decided to go for one final clash. So Lee went into first gate, while Sasuke electrified his hand with lightning nature chakra. And when they were ready, they ran at each other. But before they could actually collide, people in the stands began to fall asleep, signaling the start of the Konoha Crush. Then a barrier appeared on the top of the stadium, making it so the Hokage was stuck with the Kazekage. And seeing this, the 2 stopped. And when they do, they notice the 3 Saiyan Shinobi leaving the arena, and they began to run to the nearby woods. And seeing this, Sasuke ran after them, while Lee went to the stands to see what to do. And he began to help Guy and Kakashi fight the enemy Shinobi in the stands. And while he was fighting, Kakashi told him to wake Sakura to wake up Naruto and Shikamaru and bring them to him. And once she wakes up Naruto and drags Shikamaru to Kakashi, Kakashi summons a dog named Bakun, and using the dog's strong sense of smell, they were able to follow Sasuke's scent. Then right before they left, Guy told Lee to go with them just in case. So he did, and after a couple of minutes of following Sasuke's scent, Bakun was able to detect 9 different smells behind them. And from this, he suspects that there are enemy Shinobi coming to attack them. And hearing this, Shikamaru comes up with a way so they can stop them from getting all of them, but in exchange, one of them will have to stay behind and possibly die. And since Naruto couldn't come up with a way to persuade Shikamaru, Shikamaru stayed behind and he ran the opposite way while the other 4 kept going. And after a couple of minutes, the 3 were able to catch up to Sasuke. But Sasuke was lying down face first as his curse mark spread across half of his body. And when they look at Gaara, he was covered in the 9 tails of chakra, to the point where he had 1 tail, and he was starting to lose control, with him now having fangs and claws. And seeing that they needed to fight, Rock Lee and Naruto ran at Gaara, while Sakura went to Sasuke to see how injured he was. And after some time, Naruto told Sakura to grab Sasuke and go, since she would most likely just be in the way. So hearing this, she grabbed Sasuke and began to run away, with Bakun following after after her. So the fight was Lee and Gaara going back and forth, doing a hand-to-hand combat, while Naruto was more of a support, using his sand to create walls to help block some of Gaara's attacks, and he made kunais and he aimed them at Gaara, which he was mostly able to dodge, and after a couple of minutes, Naruto was able to hit Gaara in the knee with a sand kunai, which made him slower, and using this to his advantage, Lee was able to kick Gaara in the gut, which flung him into a tree, and when he hit it, he got knocked out, and the chakra that was covering his body went back into his body. Then Temari, with her all alone, tried to fight the two, and she didn't fight earlier since she was scared that Gaara would attack her in the crossfire, and when Lee injured Temari enough, Naruto surrounded her with sand and he trapped her, and they knocked her out, and since they believed that the fight was done, they were going to run back, but before Lee was able to react, Gaara was able to punch him in the gut, and when Naruto sees him, Gaara was again covered in the 9 tails of chakra, but now instead of 1 tail, he now has 2 tails, and now his pupils are a bright red, and with Gaara's new speed, he was faster than Lee, and Naruto's sand wasn't strong enough to catch him in time, and eventually Lee was down with him being too injured to continue. Then Gaara began to attack Naruto, and he was strong enough to pierce through Naruto's sand, and eventually he was able to launch Naruto a couple of feet, and right after Naruto landed, he made around 8 clones, and they all covered one arm in sand, and when they were ready, they ran back at Gaara, and they began to use their arms to either try to grab Gaara by extending their arms, or firing out a bunch of sand kunais by swinging their arms, but Gaara was able to react mostly in time, with him only being hit a couple of times, and whenever he got hit, he would heal shortly afterward, and seeing all of this, Naruto believed that he needed more help, so he did the summoning jutsu, but when the smoke was gone, instead of Gamabunta, there was a small toad instead. Then while Naruto was distracted, Gaara tried to attack the two, but Naruto was able to avoid the attack just in time, and he grabbed the toad with one of his clones. Then the clone placed the toad a couple of feet away from the fight. Then the clone jumped back, and seeing that the summoning jutsu wasn't working, Naruto made around 999 shadow clones in total, and when they were ready, they began to fire a barrage of attacks, which after some time started to hurt Gaara, and when Gaara was slow enough, Naruto began to do a barrage of attacks, with some all punching with their sand arm and kicking him, and eventually, Naruto believed that Gaara was done, so he got rid of all of the clones. But the moment he got rid of them, Gaara decided to go for his trump card, and he began to force out the 9 tails itself, and eventually the area gets filled with a smoke, and when it was gone, there was now a giant orange fox, with 9 tails, and on his forehead there was Gaara. Then he used a jutsu to make himself fall asleep, and when he fell asleep, the 9 tails was fully released, and seeing that he needed a big creature to fight, Naruto tried to do summoning jutsu again, and this time he was actually able to summon Gamabunta, and when Naruto was on Gamabunta's head, he told him to help him fight the 9 tails, but seeing as he was told to fight the 9-tailed fox, but after hearing from Gamakichi that Naruto saved him, Gamabunta decided to help, so the two creatures started to fight, with Gamabunta using his sword, while the 9 tails was using his claws and fangs, and after a couple of minutes, Gamabunta told Naruto that they needed to be something with fangs and claws, to go against the 9 tails, and when Naruto heard this, he started to think of all the creatures he knew, and after a couple of seconds, he figured out what he should be, so he then surrounded the two with a cloud of smoke, and when it was gone, Gamabunta was the Shukaku, and after a couple of minutes, Gamabunta was able to grab onto the 9 tails, and with the couple of seconds he had, Naruto was able to get onto the 9 tails, and when he was on, he began to run at Gaara, and when he got close enough, he extended his arm and he punched him in the face, waking him up, and when he woke up, the 9 tails got forced back into him, and with that, the 9 tails they were standing on got surrounded by smoke, and after a couple of seconds, the two began to fall, and when the 9 tails disappeared, the 2 toads disappeared as well, and since the two ran out of chakra, they both passed out the moment they hit the ground, and when Naruto woke up, he found himself in a hospital room, soon was Kakashi reading a book, and when he noticed that Naruto was awake, Kakashi tells Naruto everything that happened, and a couple of days later, the village held a funeral for the third Hokage, and that's where I'm going to leave the what if. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time on Something Z.